Tell me, what is strength? Most men believe it is the weight they can lift, the gold they can hoard, or the armies they command. But tonight, I will reveal a truth so dangerous it may unmake you. This video can make you inhumanly strong or no longer human at all. For the problem is this: men wish for power, but they do not see the price it demands. You want strength. I will show you how to seize it. But beware, the path I offer may strip you of everything that makes you human. So, you believe you know what strength is. You look at the gladiator in the arena, his muscles glistening with sweat, veins bulging with power, and you tell yourself, that man is strong. You gaze at the nobleman with his vaults of gold, his jeweled rings, his silk garments, and you whisper, that man is strong. You see the general on horseback commanding thousands of men, and in fear and awe, you think, that man is strong. And yet, I tell you this, you are deceived. You are mistaking the shadow for the substance, the mask for the face, the illusion for the truth. For what is muscle but meat destined to decay? What is gold but metal, so easily stolen, melted, or squandered? What is an army but men who will desert when the winds of fortune turn against you? Strength, as the world has taught you to worship it, is fragile, temporary, a toy placed in your hands by chance and stripped from you by fate. The body ages. The chest that once swelled with pride becomes frail, the back bends, the knees ache, and the mighty hands tremble. What, then, remains of the wrestler's power? Nothing but dust and the echoes of applause that fade into silence. The treasury, too, can empty. Gold is faithless. Today it belongs to you. Tomorrow it belongs to the thief, the tax collector, or the ambitious rival who sharpens his dagger in the shadows. Armies, too, are fickle. They will swear loyalty under banners and music, but when the fear of death grips them, they scatter like frightened birds. Kings who believe themselves strong, bolstered by the illusion of soldiers, have watched their crowns trampled under the boots of deserters. Understand this well: if your strength is borrowed from flesh, from wealth, from numbers, then it is not yours at all. It belongs to chance. It belongs to the turning of fortune's wheel. And fortune is a cruel mistress, delighting in raising men high only to throw them into the mud. What, then, is true strength? Where does one find a power that does not wither, that does not rust, that does not betray? True strength is not in the body, but in the will that commands it. Not in the gold, but in the mind that knows how to use it. Not in the army, but in the man whose presence bends the will of others even without a sword. Imagine a ruler stripped of his guards, stripped of his wealth, stripped even of his throne, and yet men still tremble in his presence. That is strength. Imagine a man who, though hungry and poor, cannot be broken, cannot be manipulated, cannot be corrupted because his spirit is iron. That is strength. And this, my friend, is a kind of power most will never taste, because most men are slaves. Slaves to their desires, slaves to their fears, slaves to the opinions of others. Consider how easily the ordinary man is swayed. A harsh word wounds him. A seductive promise lures him. A threat makes him bow his head. His strength is nothing but weakness dressed in arrogance. He builds his house upon sand, and when the storm comes it falls. True strength, however, is a fortress built on the rock of discipline, self-mastery, and ruthless clarity. To reach it, you must first conquer yourself. Do you think it difficult to conquer nations? The hardest conquest is the conquest of one's own impulses. The man who rules his appetites is mightier than the man who commands 10,000 soldiers, because soldiers may turn against their general, but the disciplined will never betray its master. The illusion of strength is seductive. It promises you ease, admiration, safety. You think, if only I were bigger, richer, surrounded by more allies, I would be unassailable. But that is a child's dream. The moment your allies taste fear, they will abandon you. The moment your wealth dries up, your so-called friends will vanish. The moment your body falters, the crowd will cheer another man, and you will stand naked, exposed, humiliated, asking yourself how you could have been so blind. Look closely at history, and you will see the same story repeated 1,000 times. Rome admired its strongest generals, only to see them assassinated by their closest allies. Kingdoms crowned wealthy merchants as saviors, only to watch their riches vanish in famine. Even philosophers who thought their words made them strong were silenced by mobs who found their ideas inconvenient. Power rooted in external things is like a tree planted in shallow soil. It grows quickly, looks impressive, but when the storm comes, it falls, revealing its hollow roots. Now look instead at the rare men who possess true strength. They may have lost their armies, but their enemies still feared them. They may have been exiled, but their names still commanded loyalty. They may have been chained, but even their captors felt the shadow of their will. Strength that lives in the body dies with the body. Strength that lives in wealth dies with fortune. but strength that lives in the mind and will. This is the kind of strength that endures beyond circumstance, beyond fortune, even beyond death. It is the strength of Caesar crossing the Rubicon with a fraction of the army yet making Rome tremble. It is the strength of a prince who, though hated by his subjects, is obeyed because they cannot imagine defying him. It is the strength of men who reshape the world not by lifting stones, but by lifting their will above the petty fears that cripple the rest of mankind. Most of you will not reach this. You will content yourselves with muscles and coins, with crowds chanting your name. You will cling to the illusion because it is easy, because it is what others praise, because it requires no true sacrifice. And yet, deep within, you will know that your strength is fragile, that in the silence of your own heart you are weak. True strength demands something more, something that most are unwilling to give. It demands that you turn your gaze inward, that you confront the trembling child within you, that you silence his cries with discipline, until only the voice of power remains. It demands that you strip away illusion after illusion, until you stand naked, face to face with your own frailty, and either break under it or forge yourself into something unbreakable. Do not fool yourself into believing that strength can be acquired without loss. Power is never free. Every ounce of it must be paid for with blood, with sacrifice, with the dismemberment of something precious within you. Men dream of becoming unshackable, yet they tremble the moment they are asked what they are willing to give up. They pray for might, yet when the price is set before them, they shrink away like cowards. They want the crown without the weight of it. They want the sword without the burden of wielding it. But this is not how the world works. Nothing that makes you formidable will be handed to you without demanding a toll from your humanity. Consider what is required to become stronger than the rest of mankind. The man who wishes to rise must first cut away the weaker parts of his soul, compassion. How noble it sounds, yet how poisonous it becomes when it stays your hand at the moment you must strike. Pity. How praised it is by poets and priests, yet how it chains you to the failures of others. Comfort. How sweet to the senses, yet how it softens your spirit until you are nothing but a slave to pleasure. Each of these things, celebrated as virtues, is in truth a leash tied around your throat. If you desire strength, you must learn not merely to loosen these leashes, but to tear them apart, to free yourself even if it feels like tearing off your own skin. The weak will tell you that you can have it all, that you can keep your tenderness and still be strong, that you can retain your innocence and still be cunning, that you can remain gentle and still command obedience. These are lies spoken by those who fear the reality of power. To climb higher than others, you must be willing to become something they can no longer recognize. The very qualities that make you lovable, that make you harmless, must be sacrificed. Think of the serpent shedding its skin. It does not weep for the old layer it abandons. So too must you abandon the part of you that clings to softness. If you intend to grow sharper, harder, deadlier, look around you at the men you call strong. How many of them pay this price openly? Very few. Most reach strength, but they want it on their terms. They want it cheap. And so, they chase shortcuts, lifting heavier weights, shouting louder, surrounding themselves with followers who worship them. Yet inside they are fragile, because they have not paid the true cost. They have not confronted the truth that to rise above men, you must surrender the illusions that comfort men. The man who clings to comfort will never endure hardship. The man who clings to pity will never make the ruthless decision that power demands. The man who clings to morality will never seize opportunities that come wrapped in darkness. Understand, then, that the path to inhuman strength is not paved with pleasures, but with denials. You must deny yourself the luxury of ease. While others sleep, you must remain awake, sharpening your will like a blade. You must deny yourself the comfort of excuses. While others justify their weakness with stories, you must look your weakness in the eye and destroy it. You must deny yourself the sweetness of popularity. While others crave to be adored, you must be content with being fear-hated or misunderstood. This is the price. It is not gold. It is not blood. It is the gradual peeling away of everything human until you are left with only what is necessary, only what is strong. History remembers those who paid this price. Alexander, who burned his ships so that his men had no path of retreat. He sacrificed their comfort and his own compassion, for he knew hesitation would be his death. Caesar, who betrayed friends, crossed forbidden rivers and shattered laws. He sacrificed loyalty and morality, for he knew obedience to weakness would keep him chained. Princes, rulers, generals, thinkers, every one of them who carved their names into the stones of time did so by giving up something sacred. They amputated parts of themselves, and though the world called them cruel, Ambitious, merciless, it also bowed before them. And yet how many of you are prepared to do the same? You want strength, but you cling to your comforts as a drowning man clings to driftwood. You want greatness, but you weep at the thought of being feared. You want power, but you still kneel before the altar of morality, hoping to be both pure and victorious. You cannot have both. A man who wants to be both feared and loved ends up with neither. A man who tries to be both ruthless and merciful ends up paralyzed when the moment of decision arrives. The strong are not weighed down by such contradictions. They have already paid the price of discarding them. Ask yourself, then, what you are willing to lose. Your pity, your softness, your desperate need to be admired. Ask yourself if you can stand to walk through the fire while others run to water. Ask yourself if you can cut ties with the weaker version of yourself and never look back. For this is the hidden cost. You will bury parts of yourself alive. They will scream within you, begging for resurrection, but you must silence them. You must let them rot in the ground while you continue walking, harder and colder with every step. And when others call you inhuman, they will be right. But it will also be true that you are stronger than they could ever imagine. There comes a moment on this path where you look into the mirror and no longer recognize the face staring back at you. You began as a man among men, weak, fragile, chained by the same illusions that bind them all. But through sacrifice, through the stripping away of compassion, comfort, and morality, you begin to transform. Slowly at first, then with a swiftness that terrifies even you. And when the transformation is complete, what remains is no longer fully human. Humanity is soft, sentimental, breakable. But strength in its purest form is something colder, harder, untouchable. It is not flesh and blood anymore. It is stone, steel, and shadow. Picture yourself, once trembling with doubts and insecurities, now walking into a room with silence heavy as death. You do not raise your voice, yet every man feels your presence press upon them like an invisible weight. Their words falter, their courage drains, and they find themselves bending to your will without even understanding why. This is not charisma. This is not charm. This is something more primal, more terrifying. It is the aura of a man who has shed his humanity and become something other. They sense it instinctively, as sheep sense the wolf, as prey sense the predator. Do you think the world will embrace you when you reach this state? No. They will recoil. They will whisper behind your back. He has no heart, no soul, no compassion. They will call you merciless, ruthless, even monstrous. And they will be right. For to become unbreakable, you must cut away the parts of yourself that break. To become feared, you must silence the parts that long to be loved. To become untouchable, you must kill the part of you that craves touch. What remains is not what they recognize as human. It is something beyond it, something sharper, something that frightens them even when you do nothing at all. Look at history's great figures. Do you think they were adored for their kindness? Or do you think they were obeyed because they became too formidable to be resisted? Alexander was worshipped as a god not because he was tender, but because he carried himself with the cold certainty of destiny. Caesar could command with a glance because he had shed hesitation, indecision, and fear long before others even understood him. These men were not entirely human anymore. Humanity in its ordinary form is too fragile for conquest. They became something greater, something that stood apart, something that inspired fear and awe in equal measure. Imagine this transformation as a kind of death and rebirth. The man you once were dies. Death more final than any grave. He was weak. He cared too much. He wavered too often. He is buried in silence. And in his place rises a figure stripped of doubt, stripped of weakness, stripped even of the simple joys that bind ordinary men together. Your smile becomes rare, your laughter unnatural, your compassion a thing of memory. But your resolve becomes absolute. When you decide upon a course, there is no wavering, no second guessing, no trembling in the dark. You move forward like a storm, relentless, inevitable, unstoppable. That is why people will fear you. Not because you shout louder, not because you strike harder, but because you have become incapable of faltering. The transformation does not come without cost. Others will sense it, and they will begin to pull away from you. Friends will call you cold. Lovers will find you distant. Family will say they do not recognize you anymore. And perhaps they are right. They recognize the man you used to be, not the being you have become. For while they are still clinging to their humanity, you have left yours behind. You no longer feel as they feel, weep as they weep, hunger as they hunger. You have exchanged those things for clarity, for focus, for strength that they cannot even imagine. But with this transformation comes a kind of terrible freedom. You are no longer bound by the same chains that restrain others. Where they hesitate, you strike. Where they doubt, you act. Where they crumble, you remain standing. They will call you heartless. But what is a heart except a weakness that bleeds when pierced? They will call you soulless. But what is a soul if it keeps you tethered to hesitation and regret? And so, in their language of weakness, they will curse you. But in the silence of their envy, they will also admire you. They will bow their heads when you pass, not because they love you, but because they cannot help but fear you. Think of it like this: ordinary men are glass, shining brightly in the light but shattering under the smallest blow. The transformed man, the more than human, is iron. He does not shine, but he does not break. He does not need to be admired. He does not need to be loved. He simply endures, and endurance is power greater than beauty, greater than charm, greater than the fragile illusions that others worship. The man who becomes iron is no longer counted among men. He is something they must bow to, whether they wish to or not. And yet, do not mistake this state for happiness. Happiness is the language of the human, the chatter of the weak. This path is not about joy. It is about power. It is about becoming untouchable, immovable, inevitable. You will not laugh as others laugh. You will not dream as others dream. Your pleasures will be rare, your comforts almost non-existent. But when the world tests you, when others crumble under the weight of fear and loss, you will stand as a monument to strength. And monuments are not loved. They are feared, respected, obeyed. This transformation is irreversible. Once you shed your humanity, you cannot return to it. The door behind you closes forever. And though you may sometimes feel the ghost of your old self clawing at the inside of your skull, whispering of warmth, tenderness, of softness, you must ignore it. That voice is weakness, and you killed it for a reason. What remains is a darker voice, colder, quieter, but infinitely more powerful. It does not beg, commands. It does not hope. It decides. It does not dream, it acts. And those who encounter you will know, whether they speak it or not, that they stand in the presence of something no longer entirely human. There always comes a moment when a man has walked far enough on this path that he must face a question sharper than any blade, heavier than any crown, darker than any temptation. The question is this: will you cling to your humanity, or will you abandon it to seize strength that lies beyond it? This is not a question for children, nor for the weak. It is not asked in comfort, but in silence, in solitude, when you stand before yourself and can no longer hide behind excuses or illusions. It is the most dangerous choice a man can face, because the answer defines not only what he becomes, but whether he remains a man at all. Humanity is fragile. It offers you tenderness, joy, companionship, the warmth of being understood and embraced. To remain human is to keep the ability to love, to weep, to forgive, to dream in colors. But to remain human is also to remain vulnerable, to bleed when struck, to collapse when fate grows cruel, to suffer endlessly at the hands of the stronger. Humanity is both blessing and curse. It gives you beauty, but it also condemns you to weakness. And so, the choice is not between good and evil, as the priests and philosophers will tell you. The choice is between strength and frailty, between becoming unshakable or remaining breakable. If you choose strength, then you must understand what you are truly choosing. You are choosing to cut yourself free from the ties that bind other men together. You are choosing a life where others no longer understand you, no longer look at you as one of their own, but as something alien, something feared, something whispered about in dark corners. You are choosing the loneliness of power, the silence of command, the burden of being untouchable. You are choosing to rise, but in rising you will leave behind the warmth of those who walk below. Most men cannot make this choice. They hesitate, they tremble, they wish to have both. They want to be strong, but they also want to be loved. They want to be feared, but they also want to be embraced. They want to be untouchable, yet they want to feel the softness of belonging. They crave the impossible union of strength and humanity, and so they are forever torn in two, living as contradictions, breaking apart when the world forces them to decide. History has no place for such men. They are forgotten, their names dissolving like salt in water, because they refuse to make the sacrifice that would give them weight and permanence. The man who chooses humanity over strength may live surrounded by love, but he will also live under threat, always subject to forces greater than himself. His heart will beat, but it will also break. His life will glow, but it will also shatter when tested. The man who chooses strength over humanity may live in solitude, may live despised, but he will endure. He will not bend when others bend. He will not collapse when others collapse. He will walk through storms, through betrayals, through the fire of history, and though he may walk alone, he will walk unbroken. Do not think this is a choice made only once. It will haunt you again and again every time you are tested. A lover will beg you to soften, to show compassion, to yield. A friend will plead with you to turn back, to remember your humanity. A moment of weakness within you will whisper that it is better to be loved, better to be gentle, better to remain human. And each time, you will face the blade of the same question, strength or humanity. Each time, you will either rise further above men, or you will sink back into their fragile embrace. This path does not forgive hesitation. You are either climbing beyond humanity, or you are falling back into it. Consider carefully what it means to choose strength. It means you will live without illusions. The world will no longer deceive you with its games of morality, its false promises of fairness, its childish belief that good men always triumph. You will see the world as it is, ruthless, indifferent, carved by the hands of those willing to act when others falter. To walk this path is to strip away every comfortable lie, until all that remains is the raw machinery of power. It is to stare at the ugliness of reality and not look away, to embrace it, to wield it. This is not a choice for the faint of heart. This is not a choice for those who fear the weight of clarity. But understand as well what it means to remain human. It means you will live among others, sharing in their joys and sorrows, bound together by fragile connections that feel warm but also restrain you. You will laugh, but you will also cry. You will be comforted, but you will also be betrayed. You will be loved, but you will also be abandoned. To remain human is to walk willingly into suffering, to accept weakness as the price of belonging. Many will choose this, and they will tell you it is the better path. They will tell you it is noble virtues, even divine. But listen closely, and you will hear the trembling in their voices, the fear hidden in their hearts, the knowledge that they are at the mercy of those stronger than them. This choice is not about morality. It is not about right or wrong. It is about survival, domination, endurance. It is about deciding what you value more, the warmth of being human, or the cold fire of becoming something greater. Most will never face this choice honestly. They will pretend they can have both, that they can be strong and gentle, ruthless and merciful, feared and loved. But the world will tear this illusion apart the first time they are tested, and they will discover too late that indecision is the most fatal choice of all. When the moment comes for you, it will not announce itself with trumpets or warnings. It will arrive quietly in a decision that seems small but carries the weight of destiny. A door will open before you, and you will know instinctively that one path leads to strength beyond men, and the other leads back to the fragile comfort of humanity. You will feel the pull of both, the hunger for greatness and the hunger for warmth. And in that moment, you will reveal who you truly are, not to the world, but to yourself. And so you have walked with me through shadows. You have seen the illusions men mistake for strength, and you have seen how easily they crumble when tested. You have heard the price demanded of those who would rise higher, the sacrifices carved from the very flesh of their humanity. You have glimpsed what it means to transcend men, to become something colder, harder, a being that commands not through love, but through inevitability. And you have faced the question, the only question that matters. Will you remain human, or will you abandon it all to become more than human? This is not a choice I can make for you. I can only open your eyes to the truth. To remain human is to keep your warmth, but also to keep your weakness. To rise above humanity is to seize power untouchable, but at the cost of the very things that make men cling together in their fragile bonds. One path offers comfort, the other domination. One ends in tenderness, the other in fear and legend. But whichever path you choose, remember this: history remembers only the strong. The world bows not to those who are gentle, but to those who are unbreakable. The monuments are not raised for those who lived happily, but for those who endured, who conquered, who bent reality to their will. Humanity may give you love, but strength gives you eternity. So now the choice stands before you, silent, demanding. To remain what you are, or to become what others dare not. The question is not whether this video can make you inhumanly strong, or no longer human. The question is whether you are willing to pay the price to decide which of the two you shall become.